Good morning to all of you, and thank you for the introduction, Gautam. I'm very happy to be here this morning to talk with you and share a little bit of a case study or our experiences in Singapore in developing a land transport, public transport system and trying to integrate it with different components of the city's transport network and the urban plans. Now, if I may just start, because I think we only got 50 minutes, so I'll go through quite quickly. We have for those who are familiar with Singapore, you know that we are a very small city-state in Southeast Asia. Now, right from the outset, the first thing that we tried to do was to see how we could integrate transport and land use planning. And that is something we started very soon after we became an independent country in 1965. And we started with developing concept plans where we developed both the urban plans and the transport network at the same time. These were studies that first started in 68 to 1972. The first concept plan was developed. And then we have continued this system of developing concept plans for the whole country, or the whole island in this case, on a 10-year basis. That means every 10 years, we review this concept plan and we develop a new concept plan that builds upon the previous one, but then takes into account the evolving circumstances and the changes that take place. And this concept plan then lay the framework, the compass or the guidance document or plan that all the agencies buy into and develop then their various work, the housing plans, the transport plans, the utilities plan, etc., schools, etc. Now, this master planning process is subsequently translated into a more midterm process where we develop, in the context of the concept plan, a medium-term rail and road network plan. Now, this is for 10 to 15 years. And then subsequently, we do the studies to decide what will be the roads to be developed, what will be the rail lines to be developed over that period. Now, if I look back on Singapore, I mean, I was born there and I've lived there my entire life. If I look back on Singapore from the time it became an independent country in 1965, if you look at the plan there, the colors in the colors in orange or brownish color are those where most people in Singapore live in very high density residential towns, and the lines which are indicated in blue color are those that are the MRT lines. Because of the process that we started in the 70s of trying to integrate the transport and land use plan, you will notice that almost all the housing towns, high density towns, are actually strung along the mass rapid transit or the MRT corridors, with typically one or two MRT stations located at the town center area, such that people are able to walk to the stations, or if they are a little bit further apart, further than say 500-600 meters, then they have a feeder bus service network that can take them into the town. And the intent actually is to reduce traffic and car dependency and promote high density, compact, public transport-centric urban fabric. Nowadays, we call it transit-oriented development, but at that time, we just used to call it integration of transport and land use planning. And the last point is it allows us to safeguard the public transport corridors. Now, you're not going to build everything within the next 5 years or so, but you need to safeguard so that when the time comes to build, you can then do it, and safeguarding allows us to achieve that. Now, that is at the island level, but then when you go down to, like I mentioned earlier, the residential towns, the very high density residential towns, I show here two examples of two towns. One is called Punggol Town in the northeast of Singapore. Oops, sorry, it's out of battery. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, back again in action. This shows two housing towns which were planned to house each town about 250,000 of population. And the line in blue shows the LRT network, such that all parts of the town are within about 400 to 500 meters walking distance, so that anybody can walk to the LRT station, take the LRT and then take it to the town center where you can then take the MRT, all within a same enclosed area. Now that's in terms of housing. The same principle is adopted for city planning, where the city expands into the reclaimed area south of the existing area. And at the same time, when the land is being developed, we try to bring in the MRT lines and the other transport infrastructure together. Okay. In terms of institutional integration, we have a Ministry of Transport. We have a single level of government, a Ministry of Transport, where the Land Transport Authority, together with the Civil Aviation and Maritime Authority, are the two other authorities. So the Land Transport Authority is a single authority that takes care of all aspects of transport in Singapore. It was merged in 1995 by bringing together those agencies that were shown that are shown on the slide, so that it forms an integrated transport authority which looks after all aspects of transport planning, development, integration, traffic management, etc. So anything to do with transport, apart from operating the bus and transit services, comes under one unified land transport authority. Now, let me talk a little bit about public transport framework and how financing arrangement is done in Singapore. Now, first of all, planning is done, public transport infrastructure is planned and developed by the Land Transport Authority. In short, it is done by the government. Financing, the capital outlay is funded by the government totally, but the operations are run by private companies. And as far as possible, no direct operating subsidies are given to operators. They are expected to cover their cost of operation from the fare revenue, most of it, plus a bit from advertising, rental of premises, etc. Regulation is, of course, done by the Land Transport Authority. And in terms of fare, we have a Public Transport Council, which is appointed by the Minister for Transport, which decides on applications from the operators for any increase in fares. So that's the system that's been adopted as far as financing arrangement is concerned. We have a rail network of about 182 kilometers today, developed since the early 1980s. And we expect to increase it to about 360 kilometers over the next 14, 15 years or so, such that it will provide rail connectivity across the whole island. And the 8 in 10 households in Singapore will be within a walk distance of an MRT station. Now, that is on the rail side. Now, on public transport, we have a comprehensive network of buses covering the whole island, about nearly 5,000 buses. 2 multimodal operators and 3 single bus operators. That means 3 operators operate buses only based on assigned areas of responsibility. Fares and service standards are regulated. And the purpose, the role of buses is really as shown on the slide. They principally serve 3 roles. One is it's a feeder to and from the mass rapid transit system, long-haul journeys in corridors not served by MRT, and also serve local needs within towns and from one town to another town. So the buses play a very important role, and they will continue to play a very important role even when we expand the rail network as shown in the slide earlier. Now, there is some reorganization of the bus services going on at the moment. Earlier on, or existing, it's a model where the bus operators do the detailed planning of the bus operations, service routes, etc. But we plan by this year to transit to a bus contracting model where the government owns all the buses infrastructure and contract out packages of routes. The government retains the fare revenue and pays operators a fee to operate and maintain services. So that's something like that. We call it bus packages for tenders. The bus operator will bid for bus route packages, typically about of the order of 300 to 500 buses in different areas. And the revenue will be kept by the government or the LTA, and the operator will be given a fixed fee, or I think in short, a gross cost model that we are going to. Now, a couple of reasons why we are going towards that. One is in terms of improving the level of service to meet the aspirations of the people of Singapore. Because previously it's done on a commercial basis by the operators themselves, but here we want to take on this. And secondly, is to introduce some element of contestability, competition, so that the operators have actually got to bid for it every 5, every 10 years to operate the bus service in these areas. Now, let me talk very quickly about integrating of public transport. There are 4 aspects I'm going to cover as shown on the slide: physical integration, integration of modes, fair integration, an important component, and also another very important component, information integration. Now, integration of developments, I think most of you know that we try to integrate transport, MRT stations with both other MRT lines and transport infrastructure, plus together with developments nearby or on top of it. An example is Sengkang town. Sengkang town, again, is a town that I showed earlier. We'll have about 250,000 population. And the idea is all the transfers will take place within the development. That means you can actually take the LRT, come to the town center, and without getting out, with using the same fare card, you can actually go down to the MRT line, and then you can take the MRT to wherever you are going, and integrate both residential, commercial developments together with it, and a bus interchange as well, where people can wait within the development in air-conditioned comfort, and then take the bus to transfer to a bus or vice versa. Now, in short, this is the cross-section. Everything happens within the same development, so people don't have to walk very far. Our climate is hot and at times very wet, so the idea is transfers are always a pain point. People don't like to transfer. So if you want people to use public transport and to transfer, you need to make transfers as convenient, as comfortable as possible. Now, integrating transport modes, transit stations are designed to integrate physically with or connected to other transport modes. Like I said, includes bus interchanges, taxi stands, and the network is to be integrated. And finally, very importantly, fare integration. It should be one single fare card based on a policy where you pay according to the distance you travel, not because you got to transfer so many times. So it doesn't matter how many times you transfer, it is based on how long the distance you travel. So over the next, today and over the coming years, we are developing quite a number of what we call public transport hubs, where all these things are done within a single development. Also, it becomes sort of a lifestyle for people. They don't see public transport, traveling on train as just a utility thing, a functional thing, but you can do activities when you reach the stations. Now, public transport service information, as most cities have, we heard from Seoul yesterday from the president of Koti, we need to provide information to public transport users in a very timely, easy manner so that they can make decisions. So in our case, we develop what we call a mytransport.sg, where all public transport information, such as when the buses arrive, where you can transfer to, information of that nature, are all captured on this mytransport, so you don't have to actually run around trying to find the information. So that's something which is very important. And then the last thing, the first and last mile connectivity. How do you ensure that a public transport user, from the moment he leaves his house until his destination, his entire journey is covered, and it is not just the travel on the particular mode of motorized mode of transport, but the entire journey. So how do you take care of it? Through cycling, through walking footpaths, through feeder bus networks, etc., and through personal mobility devices that are coming to the forefront very quickly. Autonomous vehicles, for instance, that you can use. And again, in our wet and hot climate, walking. I mean, you can never have a public transport-friendly city unless the city is friendly to people who walk. So we have a system. We try to make walking as comfortable, as convenient as possible to the people, such that when they cross, say, and using an overhead bridge, because aging population, you provide escalators, you provide lifts, etc. Because as you age, you don't expect people to climb up and down. So this is something which is very important, which we learned as we went along. In the first stage of our development, we went around providing a lot of overhead bridges. I mean, it was a young population. But then as the population aged, we realized that a lot of people have difficulty climbing overhead bridges, etc. So now what we try to do is provide as much as possible at-grade crossings. Now that, of course, it's a balance between traffic mobility and pedestrian mobility, but that's where the pendulum is sort of swung over the years. and covered the walkways and make sure the people are safe from rainy weather. Okay. Well, okay, that in short is a very quick overview. In terms of time constraint, I didn't want to go too far, but certainly later on, if there are any questions, I'd be delighted to take them. Thank you very much for your